but if you can just trust that God loves you, then you'll be able to get through it all. And I think that's something that I didn't trust because I didn't trust him to make my life better than the way that I had planned.
Hello, and welcome to Returning Stronger Stories. I am the host, Jon Larsen, and today we have a special guest, Cara, with us. Thank you, Cara, for being willing to come on. I think there's just real value in sharing your story and, letting people know that they're not alone in what they've experienced. I think sometimes when we go through things like this, you feel like you're the only person in the world that experienced that. But being able to hear other people talk, I think it just breaks that shame cycle that people feel sometimes.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I just wanted to start off first by giving you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your story, where you were called, how long you served, and what were some of the reasons that necessitated you having to return home.
Yeah, of course. So I served in Houston, Texas. There's 3 missions in Houston. I served in the South one.
Hmm.
I'm older for my grade, so when I graduated high school, I wanted to leave on my mission right away. And I had a missionary at the time, so I planned it out perfectly. I'd go to 6 months of school and I'd come home. I went out in about January of 2022 and I came home in May of 2022. So I was out for about 4.5 months.
Mhm.
Did about 2.5 transfers. I got sick in high school. My senior year, I woke up one day and I had just a headache, And when you have a headache, you're just like, oh, okay, I'll just take some medicine. I'll be fine.
Mhm.
But I woke up and it never went away. So we're about 6 years in, where every day I've woken up with now I know they're migraines. And that's just become a new normal to me. But when I decided to go on a mission, I kind of just said, well, I experience this every day anyways, I might as well go serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I went my mission, and my health was decent at the time. But from the moment I was set apart, my health skyrocketed. And the MTC was difficult, but I thought if I pushed through, I could, be healed or be able to deal with it. And it just got worse on my mission. I was puking every day. I gained like 20 pounds and I lost 10 pounds. And I was just in so much pain. My eyes had like welts behind them and they had bruises from me pushing pens or my fingers in it because it was like the only thing that relieved the pain. And so after a while it got to me and I decided that I wanted to go home. And so I left about 2.5 transfers in. I got emergency transferred out and a sister took my place. And then I came home and I focused on my health and got diagnosed with a lot more. I got autoimmune diseases that they had discovered and things like that. And I came home and just had to learn how to relive life. And, I wasn't a missionary anymore. So that's a little about my story, I would say.
I've heard that so many times from other people because I think that what people don't anticipate sometimes is that the mission can be very stressful and intense, the schedule and stuff. So, your story where you're saying, oh, I lived with this every day and I thought it would just be that way. And then it intensifies, once you got out there. And so it got to a point where it just wasn't manageable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved my mission, loved the people, but if you have health problems or mental health problems, it times it by 10.
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Yep. So what we've experienced is that despite the length of time, most of the missionaries we talk to will suggests that they've had some kind of meaningful spiritual experience, whether when they were out in the field or in the process of returning home. Did you experience anything like that you would want to share with us that happened with you?
I did. So my last week before I went home of my mission, I was already debating whether to go home, but it was actually a struggle for me to come home from my mission. I had pushback from my mission presidents and from companions and other people believing that I was just homesick, which I don't get homesick. I was fine. But they wanted me to stay and push through it and that God would heal me or those type of things. Um, but the week before I had decided I was going to go home, I had been praying about it. And every day on my mission, I was keeping track of my pain severity because the type of migraines that I have, they change throughout the day. So I could wake up with a 9 and be a 7 in an hour later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was keeping track to try to find triggers or things that were causing it, food. I was tracking everything. Um, and I was basically at a good day was me at an 8. And I would
Wow.
compare like I've experienced a lot of pain in my life. I've had a lot of broken bones. I've had my tibia break. I've had ear surgery. I've had a tumor. Like health problems was not something have not dealt with before. But I was probably experiencing about a 9 or 10 in pain every day. And I was at a member's house when I got the news that my uncle had passed away. And it was rough for me. It was probably the first time that I couldn't be there with my family and everyone at the funeral, and that was really hard on me. It was very sudden and not expected that he passed away, and I had already wanted to go home. So I didn't feel like my mission was doing anything for me. I didn't feel like I was benefiting or helping anyone. And I met a guy who we just went to a normal girl's house that had been seeing the missionaries previously, but for some reason she hadn't been checked on in like over a month. And my comp had a feeling to go by and say hello to this member. And we went to their house, and her husband answered the door, and um, his wife was not there. She actually passed away 3 days before, the same day
Wow.
that my uncle had passed away. And he started bawling, crying, this probably like 6-year-old man, and started talking about how he asked for God to send him angels. And I felt very strongly like I had to tell him that his wife was being taken care of by my uncle. And so I told him, and he started crying, and he was just overwhelmed with the spirit. And we testified of that we'll see them again. And it was very comforting to me because I felt like I was somewhere that God needed to be and that he knew and understood me. But the cool part is when I decided a couple days later that I still wanted to go home because of my health, I didn't notice until I came home. I was going through my old journals and I found my tracking of my pain. And from my uncle passing away till the day that I met that man, I was a 0 every single day.
Wow.
And that is the 1 week of my life that I've been a 0 in the last six years. And to me,
Wow.
that was like confirmation that God was there for me in my pain, and he knew that I had to go home and take care of it, and that I wasn't any different or less of a person because I didn't serve a full-time mission.
What an amazing experience. And that it sounds like that man needed you too and needed that story in that moment.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that reciprocity there.
Yeah.
I think it fits with what we've known and seen is that, regardless of the amount of time that someone serves, it's meaningful, and there
Exactly.
there are amazing experiences that happen. and that sacrifice is real, whether it's a short amount or a longer time. So
Yeah,
the success of that is not based on a timeline.
I agree.
Well, what do you feel like was the hardest part for you about coming home, and what helped you kind of get through that?
Oof. I would say the
That's a
hardest
hard one.
part, yeah, hardest part for me was I was angry at God. I came home and I'd been told all throughout my mission, like, if you choose to serve God, He will heal you, or like, your mission's going to be this amazing experience. And my mission was, quote unquote, like, hell for me on earth. And I was so angry that I was so young and trying to sacrifice my life to God. And here I was coming home early, ruining my plan. I was still sick. I was depressed. And I was a 19-year-old girl with garments. And I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. So for a long time, I blamed him and I was very upset at him for the life that was now mine. I would say how I dealt with it is I took the habits that I learned on my mission and I implemented them into my life. Um, I wasn't perfect, and there was a period where I didn't want to go to church. I didn't talk to God. My parents would say I was rebellious or going going on the other side. But I still did the things, like I still prayed and I still read my scriptures even though I didn't want to. And I think that's what healed me in the end, because when I had finally like humbled myself and turned myself to God, He was there the whole entire time. And I found miracles and stories along the way where I saw His hand in my life. And so I think how I dealt with it was by just trying to stay connected, knowing that I would come back to Him eventually.
That's amazing. I think that's a story that is very common. People
Oh,
have to, sometimes have that resentment or that period where they have to kind of figure out how it works best for them, and
yeah.
doing it in the way that you needed to do it to, rebuild that relationship. It sounds like it was that's exactly what needed to happen, and you were able
Yeah.
to walk that road. So what would you say didn't help you in the process of coming home, and what do you wish would have been different?
Oh, didn't help me in the process of coming home. I would say judgment or pushback from my mission presidents. I think that was something that was really difficult for me. Is my mission presidents were amazing people, but dealing with an invisible disease, people don't know what you're dealing with inside, and so they assume things or they make judgments. Like, I had people when I came home say to my face, like, "Oh, you came home because you got pregnant," or you came home because of like all these like things they had assumed I had sinned for all these things. But I think that's what was hardest for me, is feeling like I disappointed God, or that someone on my mission in Texas, a family, a member, could have been saved or could have learned the gospel, but because I chose to come home, they won't. And that's something that took me a long time to realize, like, that's not how God works. He's not selfish like that. He will use someone else as an instrument in His hands.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we believe in a God who's all knowing, it's not like He was surprised when this happened. He
Yeah.
foresaw it, He knew it, it was always part of the plan. It was your
Yes.
plan, and it's what you needed, and you developed in the way that He always knew you would. And that's sometimes what we have to come to realize, and not feel like we've somehow ruined God's plan, or that all the angels are up there going, "Oh no, what do we do now?"
Yeah, it's true. I think there's a lot of stigmatism around missions and coming home early, when in the reality, no matter what reason you come home, God still loves you the exact same. And just because you serve
Absolutely.
a 2-year full mission does not mean you're worth more or have served God more than if I was 2 years at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I loved what you said there about the invisible illness, because I think we see the same thing if people come home for mental health reasons. That's another thing that you can't always see. And so sometimes people, wonder about that or have their judgments about that, but it's real for that person, and it's a challenge, and it's hard to have people kind of doubt that or question. And I think they're well-intentioned people that mean well, but when people are kind of saying, oh, have more faith or pray more and it'll get better,
It'll
that's
go
not always the
away.
case,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there are challenges that we have in our life that we just have to deal with.
It's true. I've had many people tell me, "Oh, like your faith must not be very strong then if God's not healing you." I'm like, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
But I I do believe things happen for a reason, and God's aware of everything and every detail. And you just kind of have to trust him. When we don't trust him, when we're afraid and when we are upset is when we're doubting that he won't have the best outcome for us.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. So lastly, I want to just ask you, what advice would you have for somebody who is going through that right now, who might be listening to this and experiencing that very kind of thing and coming home and having some of the feelings that you were talking about, the shame, the doubt, the feelings of failure?
Yeah, I would say is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace for not accomplishing what you thought you did, or give yourself grace for the sin that you may have been dealing with, or your mental health. Like, let yourself feel the love of God, because if you can look at yourself the way that God looks at you, you'll be okay. And it might be difficult and you might still be trying to figure out where you are and why your plan has changed, but if you can just trust that God loves you, then you'll be able to get through it all. And I think that's something that I didn't trust because I didn't trust him to make my life better than the way that I had planned.
Yeah. No, so well said. Thank you.
Of
I
course.
really appreciate that. I think that's just perfectly said. And I know that there's a power in sharing these things. I mean, both for the individual, and being able to just say, I can be vulnerable. I'm not perfect. It's okay to not be perfect, but also for other people to hear and realize that they're not alone, that
Yeah,
what they're going through, other people go through. In fact, we all do. We all have
exactly.
our faults and weaknesses and
Yeah.
struggles. Yeah.
Your struggles are
So,
not who you are. It's true.
exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being willing to come on and share your story. I think this is so meaningful.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You bet. All right.